it is not illegal to wire a manufactured home with 14-gauge wire. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, allows the use of 14-gauge wire for general-purpose lighting and receptacle circuits in manufactured homes. There are potential damages from using the wrong gauge wire. Firstly, overheating can occur. Undersized wire can overheat when carrying excessive current, increasing the risk of electrical fires. Secondly, circuit overloads can occur. Undersized wire cannot handle the load it is carrying, causing circuit breakers to trip or fuses to blow. Thirdly, voltage drop can occur. Undersized wire can cause a significant drop in voltage, affecting the performance of appliances and lighting. Fourthly, electrical shock can occur. Damaged or incorrectly sized wire can increase the risk of electrical shock. In the past, some states and localities had regulations prohibiting the use of 14-gauge wire in certain applications, such as wiring houses. However, the NEC has superseded these regulations, and 14-gauge wire is generally approved for use in both residential and manufactured homes. If you have concerns about the wiring in your manufactured home, it is recommended to consult with a qualified electrician. They can assess the wiring and ensure it meets current safety standards and codes. Let's delve deeper into the specifics of electrical wiring within manufactured homes, focusing on the allowable uses of 14-gauge wire and the broader implications of selecting the correct wire gauge for different electrical loads. The NEC, which serves as the foundational standard for electrical installations across much of the United States, provides detailed guidelines on wire sizing based on the ampacity, or current carrying capacity, of the wire. Ampacity is determined by several factors, including the wire's material, insulation type, and the ambient temperature in which it operates. For 14-gauge copper wire, commonly used types like THHN or NMB cable typically have an ampacity of 15 amps when installed in residential settings. This 15 amp limit is crucial because it dictates the maximum load that can be safely connected to a circuit wired with 14-gauge wire. In a manufactured home, 14-gauge wire is permissible for circuits that supply general lighting and receptacle outlets, provided that the circuit is protected by a 15-amp circuit breaker or fuse. This protection is essential to prevent the wire from being overloaded. If the current exceeds 15 amps, the breaker will trip, interrupting the circuit and preventing the wire from overheating, which could lead to a fire. However, it's important to understand that 14-gauge wire is not suitable for all circuits within a manufactured home. For circuits that supply larger appliances or equipment, such as air conditioners, electric heaters, or water heaters, a larger gauge wire is required to handle the increased current demand. For example, a typical 1500-watt electric heater operating at 120 volts draws approximately 12.5 amps. While this is within the 15-amp limit for 14-gauge wire, it's close to the maximum capacity, and using a larger gauge wire, such as 12-gauge, would provide a greater margin of safety and reduce the risk of overheating. When selecting the appropriate wire gauge, it's also important to consider the length of the circuit run. Longer circuits experience greater voltage drop, which can affect the performance of appliances and lighting. Voltage drop occurs because the wire has resistance, and as current flows through the wire, some of the electrical energy is lost as heat. This loss of energy results in a decrease in voltage at the end of the circuit. The NEC provides guidelines for minimizing voltage drop, recommending that the voltage drop on branch circuits should not exceed 3%. To calculate voltage drop, you need to know the length of the circuit, the current flowing through the circuit, and the resistance of the wire. There are online voltage drop calculators that can help you determine the appropriate wire gauge for your specific application. In addition to wire gauge, it's also important to select the correct type of wire for the intended application. In manufactured homes, NMB cable is commonly used for general wiring. NMB cable consists of 2 or more insulated conductors wrapped in a non-metallic sheath. It is suitable for dry locations only and should not be used in wet or damp environment. For wet or damp locations, such as bathrooms or kitchens, you should use a different type of wire, such as THHN or THWN conductors installed in conduit. THHN and THWN are both types of insulated wire that are rated for use in wet or dry locations. Conduit is a protective tube that encloses the wires, providing additional protection from physical damage and moisture. When working with electrical wiring, it's essential to follow all applicable codes and regulations. The NEC is updated every 3 years, so it's important to ensure that you are using the latest version. In addition to the NEC, there may be local codes and regulations that apply to manufactured homes in your area. It's also important to obtain any necessary permits before starting any electrical work. If you are not comfortable working with electrical wiring, it's best to hire a qualified electrician. Electricians have the training and experience to safely and correctly install electrical wiring. They can also help you select the appropriate wire gauge and type for your specific application. When hiring an electrician, be sure to check their credentials and ensure that they are licensed and insured. You should also ask for references and check their online reviews. A qualified electrician can ensure that your manufactured home is wired safely and correctly. Another aspect to consider is the proper installation and termination of wires. Loose connections or improperly tightened terminals can create hotspots, leading to overheating and potential fire hazards. It is crucial to use the correct tools and techniques when making electrical connections, ensuring that all connections are secure and properly insulated. Wiring devices, such as receptacles and switches, must also be rated for the appropriate amperage and voltage. Using undersized devices can lead to premature failure and create a safety hazard. When replacing wiring devices, it is always best to use devices that are rated for the same or higher amperage and voltage as the existing devices. In summary, while 14-gauge wire is permitted for certain applications in manufactured homes under the NEC, it is essential to understand the limitations and potential hazards associated with its use. Selecting the correct wire gauge for the intended load, considering circuit length and voltage drop, and ensuring proper installation and termination are all critical factors in maintaining a safe and reliable electrical system. Consulting with a qualified electrician is always recommended to ensure that all electrical work is performed in accordance with applicable codes and regulations. Remember that electrical safety should always be a top priority. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and your property. If you are not comfortable working with electrical wiring, it is always best to hire a qualified electrician. They can ensure that your manufactured home is wired safely and correctly. Furthermore, regular inspections of the electrical system are crucial to identify and address any potential problems before they escalate into serious hazards. Look for signs of damage such as frayed wires, cracked insulation, or loose connections. Test circuit breakers regularly to ensure they are functioning properly. If you notice any problems, have them repaired immediately by a qualified electrician. By following these guidelines and taking a proactive approach to electrical safety, you can minimize the risk of electrical fires and shocks in your manufactured home. Consider the implications of modifications or additions to the electrical system. Adding new circuits or increasing the load on existing circuits can overload the wiring and create a safety hazard. Before making any changes to the electrical system, it is essential to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that the wiring is adequate to handle the increased load. They can assess the existing wiring and recommend any necessary upgrades or modifications. When adding new circuits, it is important to use the correct wire gauge and type for the intended application. The new circuits must also be protected by circuit breakers or fuses that are properly sized for the wire gauge. In addition to the NEC and local codes, there may be specific regulations that apply to manufactured homes. These regulations may address issues such as grounding, bonding, and surge protection. It is important to familiarize yourself with these regulations and ensure that your manufactured home is in compliance. Grounding is a critical safety feature that provides a path for electricity to flow safely back to the source in the event of a fault. Bonding is the process of connecting all metal parts of the electrical system together to ensure that they are at the same electrical potential. Surge protection is used to protect electronic equipment from damage caused by power surges. Power surges can be caused by lightning strikes, utility switching, or other electrical disturbances. By implementing proper grounding, bonding, and surge protection, you can significantly reduce the risk of electrical damage to your manufactured home and its contents. Keep in mind the importance of arc fault circuit interrupters, or FSIs. These are advanced circuit breakers designed to detect arc faults, which are a common cause of electrical fires. FSIs can detect arc faults that standard circuit breakers may miss, providing an extra layer of protection against electrical fires. The NEC requires FSIs to be installed in certain locations in manufactured homes such as bedrooms and living areas. Consider the value of whole house surge protection. While surge protectors can protect individual electronic devices from power surges, they do not protect the entire electrical system. A whole house surge protector is installed at the main electrical panel and provides protection against power surges that originate outside the manufactured home. Whole house surge protectors can protect all of the electrical devices in your home, including appliances, lighting, and electronic equipment. Ensure proper maintenance of electrical panels. Electrical panels should be kept clean and free of debris. Loose connections or corroded terminals can create hotspots and lead to electrical problems. Regularly inspect the electrical panel for any signs of damage or corrosion. If you notice any problems, have them repaired immediately by a qualified electrician. Finally, never attempt to repair electrical equipment unless you are qualified to do so. Electrical repair should only be performed by qualified electricians. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and your property.